One more offensive position to get to here, and that is the offensive line. We have first offensive lineman selected, Paris Johnson sitting about minus 120-ish. Peter Skoronski sitting about plus 125. It is definitely going to be one of those two guys. These are surefire step-in day one starters in the NFL. No team has any qualms about putting either one of these guys on their offensive line. So really, it's going to come down to personal preference here, Stephen, which, I hate these picks for me. I hate having to do the whole, it really and truly comes down to whatever the team values most out of, Johnson and Skoronski. So I try to shy away from these markets. I don't know if you have a stronger opinion on it than I do.
I do. I'm taking a stand against Skoronski because the more respected people I listen to, they believe he's a guard and a fringe tackle. And I cannot see a guard being the number one offensive lineman taken in this draft with a top 10 pick. This is not Quentin Nelson, a man-eating guard. This is a fringe right tackle, if that. And I can't see teams spending a top 10 pick on him. So Pete Schrager said in his last mock, teams appear to be split on whether Broderick Jones, Peter Skoronski, or Paris Johnson Jr. will be the first offensive lineman taken. With that type of volatility and one of the three being seen as a guard by a lot of teams, this is where I take my shot on getting the best price on Paris Johnson and combining him with Broderick Jones at 14-1 at FanDuel. And if I'm right, then I get a little bit of a profit, less than even money, obviously, because I spent a little bit on Broderick Jones. But if it is Jones, then I'm getting a big profit. And I'm taking my stand that a guard will not be the first offensive lineman in this draft.
Yeah, you would, though, be going against the vast majority of the kind of expert mocks that have come out over the last week. If we take a look, you mentioned Schrager himself. He has him going 7th overall. In his latest mock draft. If you start to look at some of these guys, Solak at the Ringer has him 8th overall. If you go, I think at Walter Football, those guys do some really, really great mock drafts. Their 2 mock drafters have him going 8th and 9th.
Listen, I think he's probably the most polished, right? I think the consensus is he's probably the most polished, but he doesn't have the most upside. And there's some other guys that have upside and are more likely to play tackle at a high level in the NFL based on that athletic upside. So that's kind of where my reasoning is going here. I acknowledge the mock drafts are against me on this one.
Yeah. As far as Paris Johnson goes, and the reason why I do at least lean a little bit towards him, though, like I said, probably not a market that I'm going to be betting, is I do wonder if the Ohio State factor comes into play, right? Where it's kind of like, hey, this dude played at Ohio State. Look at all these Ohio State guys that go to the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. And, I think sometimes teams can get a little bit wrapped up in that as well, right? Like where they look and say, hey, this guy played at this blue chip program and was played against other, in practice every day against other blue chip guys on the defensive side of the ball. So he's already, really truly conditioned and stuff. And I think there's something to that, right? I mean, I think there is something to that, which is probably why the Broderick Jones stuff is starting to get a little bit of steam as well, because he is a dude that played at Georgia, and you play against SEC teams every week. You play against your own team, which, by the way, is full of NFL guys on the other side of the ball, right? So, I mean, you're getting trained basically against NFLers every single day at practice. And I think that there are some teams that take that into consideration when they start to really put together who they want to, spend their high draft pick on.
I agree with you. And I think, without a bona fide star left tackle in this draft class, that's why I'm going to take my shot on the guys that are most likely to be tackles, at least right tackles in this draft. So that's my reasoning on this one.
Yeah. If we look at the positional total of offensive linemen, which is something that, again, we're trying to, figure things out here with all of this, how many different guys are going to go at what position and stuff like that. The positional total on offensive linemen is set at 5.5 to go in the first round. Stephen, if we look at the majority of these mock drafts that are out there, again, Johnson's going, Skoronski's going, Jones is going, Darnell Wright from Tennessee is going for
Definitely.
sure in the first round. So we're at 4 already. Do we get to 2 more? Because that number, again, is sitting 5.5 right now out there for total offensive linemen drafted in the first round.
It's tough, man, in my mind. With so much volatility between the grades of these guys and them not really having first round grades, but having to be picked in the first round, I think team need starts coming into play at that point. And I don't see these guys being top 30 level grades, top 32 level grades in some of the respected evaluators out there. I'm not sure if you see the same thing or not.
I think there's a correlated play here. And it's, if you think wide receivers goes over, then I think you probably look at offensive line going under, because some of these teams that could spend on an offensive lineman, if they choose a receiver instead, then I think that really puts it under the gun. Like we said, there's only 4 surefire first rounders in Johnson, Skoronski, Jones, and Wright. Now, Osiris Torrance has been mocked in about half of the drafts to go in round 1. Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma, about a little less than half to go into the first round. And then after that, you really start digging at the offensive line position as to another first rounder. I mean, there is DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State. There's Steve Avila that is out of TCU that has getting, a little bit in the first round. But again, these are all guys that, of the respected mock drafts that I follow, I would say about 10% of them, have them going in the first round here. So for me, you are getting right now under 5.5 over at DraftKings is plus 200. You're getting 2-1 on the under of offensive linemen drafted. And I think that is a really, really, really strong bet. Again, especially if you think that wide receiver is going to go over as well, because some of those teams that might be looking offensive linemen, if they choose wide receiver, then we're really going to get into a crunch trying to get to 6 offensive linemen drafted in the first round.
And tight end might help with this as well, because we know that 3 tight ends have top 40 grades. 2 of them have top 25 grades. That could also contribute to O-linemen going under.